whole different thing. I mean, they're different roles, but they're still part of that great thing called the media. So I hope I know, like I said, I gave you a long answer, but I mean, any other hosts or...
I have a question.
Sure.
Ooh, girls first.
Ladies
first.
Yeah.
Of course.
So, where did you work before you joined sun-sentinel?
Oh God, yeah, I was thinking about this on the way down here because I remember I gotten some emails from some of you about America and some of the crazy questions you guys were getting when you tell that you're from different places and they say, oh yeah, well I hear you guys don't wear shoes over there or some crazy stuff like that. Before I'm originally from Washington D.C. and I got to Florida by way of, before I was here I was in Chicago working for Ebony magazine, which is a magazine that's devoted to, its audience is primarily African American. It's been around for about 60 years now. It's going through some problems now, but it's been around and it's had a historical role in presenting stories about African Americans in this country and in the world. Before that I lived in Dallas, Texas, where I worked for a newspaper. Before that I was in Atlanta, Georgia, where I worked for U.S. News and Report. Before that I was in, wait a minute, let me think, I'm going backwards. Before that I was in Rochester, New York, working for a newspaper up there. Before that I was at the Washington Post, and before that I was in college. Well, graduate school in New York, and then the regular 4-year college in Brunswick, Maine to go to college. So, my odyssey, I got into journalism in part because I kind of like to travel. And, I really take pride in the fact that, okay, I'm still in this business so many years later, but I got to see a little bit more of the country than someone who says lived in just one place. I take great pride in not being a native Floridian, even though there are people who take great pride from being from this place. I'm a proud Washingtonian. I still root for the Washington Redskins, even though they're not a good football team. But that's that, after all these years, that's that pride and stuff. But I think I tried to pick up stuff from different parts of the country. So by the time I landed here in Florida, I kind of bring a different perspective as to the issues and things that people are dealing with down here in Florida. But that's my background in about 5 newspapers, 2 magazines, and about 6, 7 different cities.
Is it difficult to work in a newspaper today?
Yeah, more so than it used to be. Journalism and the media overall, and the type of work that we do, it's kind of a creative process. And you'd like to be in that type of atmosphere where you can be kind of creative, where you don't have to worry about, will I have a job tomorrow? Or how come, my colleague who I was working with one day is no longer at the paper? The newspaper industry right now is really being, the big city daily newspapers, along with magazines, are really being challenged and forced to do things that it, 10 years ago wouldn't even think of. Because the money's just not there like it used to be. And the people who own these newspapers are trying to cut back in order to keep the product going. And for somebody who's in the job, who got into it because of his creativity, because of developing ideas and stories to help people or to try to make a difference, it is hard. It is hard. It kind of, I don't know about you guys, but when you're trying to create something or write something or develop something, you want to be in the best environment or where things are kind of peaceful. You don't have to worry about much. You don't want to have the interruptions of trying to do 2 or 3 different other things when you're focused on trying to complete a project or something. So, yeah, to answer your question, yeah, it is a little hard. And what's hard for me is I always like to try to go out and encourage people to, either become a part of this industry, and that's a harder sell now. It used to be, back in the days of Watergate, everybody wanted to be a news reporter. Everybody wanted to get into journalism. Now people going like, No, don't think so. So, but it's an important institution that's needed. You got to get your information from somewhere. At least, you know, there are many places to get information, but I think you need a place to go where you can trust the information that you receive, for the most part. Even though there are days we may do a story about the Loch Ness Monster. But for the most part, you know, you can get factual information in one place and not just somebody's opinion or somebody's spin on a story. So, yeah, but to answer your question, it's getting tough.
Renato.
Yeah, so
Come on, ask questions.
That was about your job.
About my job?
Yeah.
Well, typically it's, as an editorial writer, I got into it because I kind of like to throw around an opinion. Editorial writers have opinions. And after about 25 plus years of being a reporter, it was kind of nice to be able to express an opinion after seeing all these things that I've gone through. My typical day, well, this is kind of a typical day. I start my day off, you know, sometimes I start my day off talking to groups, you know, or going to meetings, you know, to get information. Even though I'm an editorial writer, I still have to go out and act like a reporter and bring in information. Because if I throw out an opinion that isn't based on the truth or facts, people are going to look at me and say, like, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. So I got to, you know, the readers are a lot smarter today than they were even when I first started. And they expect some level of competency. In order to get that, I have to go out and talk to people, get information about the subject that I write about, things that I write about. So I may start my day off at a meeting. Usually I'll come back in the office, go to a staff meeting in which we try to figure out what we're going to write about to fill our editorial page with. And then I either spend the day writing the editorial, doing research on the editorial, and then I'd like to say my day is over. But going back to this question, is it getting tougher? One of the new responsibilities that I have is I'm the online guy for the editorial. So that means I have to post things on our web page. So there are also days when if I don't have a meeting like this, I'll go in the office and I'll get on my computer and I'll start posting information, either letters that have come in or other people's opinions or even my own. So I have to maintain that web page. So that's part of the mix too. And then, you know, during the day there are a lot of what I call distractions. I mean, my boss may come up and say, "Hey man, I need you to do this." So I have to drop what I'm doing, and then suddenly I have to pick up and deal with this thing. When someone goes on vacations, I have to verify letters. And what I mean by that is, if you notice on our editorial pages, we publish letters from the public. But we have to verify that, you know, that the individual who wrote the letter actually wanted it published, and we try to figure out if it's an original piece of work as opposed to somebody just cutting and pasting off the internet. And that's getting more and more difficult to do because, as you're aware of, you know, there are a lot of organizations out there in order to get their point across will write a letter themselves and just send it out to all their supporters who will then send it to the newspapers and say, hey, this is my piece of, you know, it's an original piece of work. So we have to try to police that, and that's getting, you know, that can be a challenge because we want to we don't want plagiarized stuff. We don't want the spam, you know, basically to publish spam. We want to put original pieces of work in it. So, but that's my typical day. I mean, and it's, you know, a few years ago, the editorial writer's job was supposedly like the easiest job on the newspaper, so the reporters, because all we did was, you know, we get to work at 10 o'clock, we have a meeting, we write something, and we leave the